Hello and welcome to Tribe of Humankind, the spiritual evolution of our species. Today's Saturday, March 25th. This is episode number 7. We're here to drop in, connect, ground into our humanness, and kind of take a quick pulse on where we are, how we are. Uh, our belief systems, our understanding of our personal cosmology, and our vision for where the human race is going and how we can make steps, positive steps forward in the direction that we would like to see our personal life growing and the collective growing. And what little steps in between do we need to do to create that vision that we're holding? And how can we unite when we have so many different perspectives and understandings of what is even going on, what is reality? We're here to kind of take a look at all of that and find our commonalities, our unity, and our brightest hope and vision for the future. So thank you for dropping in. My name is Shane. I'm here in the Cotswolds, England, and I have my faithful friends and guests here with me tonight, and I would let them introduce themselves as they're feeling ready. Give us a hello and where you're calling in from and how you're doing today.
Thank you for that, Shane. That's a beautiful introduction. My name is Mano, calling in from Toronto. It's been nice coming home, spending time with family, and feeling excited for this gathering, feeling excited to hang out with some beautiful, like-minded beings and to share where we are and where we're headed. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Lex. I'm in Devon, England. And I'm looking forward to today. We're starting to get to know each other a bit. We're starting to sense each other. And I think we'll go places. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
And I'm Aisha, and I am calling in from Northern California. And I am just riding the wave today, feeling pretty tired, feeling like I have so many things to do and things I want to do. I feel like I just need to get a little bit more grounded and aligned and organized in my mind. But I'm always excited to see what will unfold here. I know our last video we did was really beautiful on just connecting on what consciousness was and really feeling it together as a collective group. And that was really beautiful. I remember leaving feeling that energy flowing through me. And so I do wish Clara was here today. That was such a special time together. And so I am intrigued to see what shape this panel and this circle will take today.
Thank you for showing up, Aisha, and making this extra effort to be here. Appreciate it. Maybe one more thing I'll ask of each of you is that we could speak to is maybe certain things that you do for your self-care, or like spiritual practices, self-care, community, any of those things that are like come up in your life in this last week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks of like what are your go-to things? And if you haven't been doing, what is the thing that you would do to like really show up and take care of yourself that way, like your spiritual health, I guess?
Yeah, I have I have been having to be very conscious of that recently because physically I have not been feeling well, and then when you're doing a lot and feeling stressed, it can affect you on a mental level, and obviously emotions are having their place within all of that. Something I love to do, I think we talked about this the last circle about our practices, and so I always do begin before I even get out of bed just aligning myself where I want to be energetically for the day. But I also have been taking Dead Sea salt baths lately. It's
Mhm.
really just a time for me to be in a prayerful way, and I can make it sacred by smudging my bath, maybe putting petals in there and blessing it, maybe with some Reiki. But it's not a bath to cleanse; it's a bath for me to just heal and to also honor my body and all the energy it's putting out for me. Also, when I get ready, sometimes I find frequency music. And it's amazing and it really helps. And I believe in it. And I've shared it with a lot of my clients and it helps them as well. I just think that's so beautiful. And on that same note, a lot of times when I'm driving into work and I'm not feeling well in the body, um, I do a practice with my body where I speak to it and I command it lovingly to release all low vibrating cells. And I name maybe it's patterns that I'm still holding on to that are in my cells, wounds that I still haven't cleared out. Maybe it's on actual health level where it's like there's inflammation or tension. And I ask to leave and flow out my body. And I imagine a blue wave of energy from source flowing through me and helping release that. And then I command my body to fill it with high vibrational cells that are filled with, and I name them. And it really locks me in. I have to tell you, every time that I do that, I make it through the day. Sometimes when I don't, I feel like it'll be difficult or I won't. Um, and lastly, I call in Kuan Yin, and I've been
Mhm.
calling in Mother Mary as well, working with her right now, both ascended masters. And I will, every time I get home, I'm just like, thank you so much. I really honestly have felt their presence holding me and keeping me like in alignment. There's just some days where you're like, how am I going to get through this today? I know
Mhm.
we all have those days. And honestly, those things alone, they really make a difference for me. And I feel really loved too. I really feel cared for by something bigger than me when I do those things too.
It's really beautiful. I really resonate with like a lot of what you're saying. Like it's just taking beautiful salt baths, just praying and just tuning in, positive affirmation. I
Yeah.
think those are definitely things that I um, lean toward. Maybe not salt bath as much these days, just
Yeah.
because they switched out the bathtub for a standing up shower, and like that's a whole nother story. um, but yeah, for sure. Like for me, like yeah, self talk is really important. Positive self talk is like one of the ways that I really communicate, and just noticing if there's like a negativity that's in the mind that's arising, um, just observing that and then transmuting that into something more beautiful. I find that it just brings in much more peaceful rhythm into my system, and also listening to high frequency music, as you mentioned, um, just playing that and quieting the mind, noticing like since coming back to Toronto, it's a very high paced environment. It's
Mhm.
very noisy, the mind is very active. It's almost like I would call it like the collective energy is like super just go 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 mode. There's no like, okay, let's take a breath together, none of that. Like, and I don't feel it like in the collective energy. So I find that I can easily get swallowed up into that momentum, or I have to really need to just learn to press my own brakes and to slow down, which for me sometimes does feel challenging, just because I'm going against the flow of the collective energy here. Um, but I find that how important it is for me to do that. And meditation really helps. And I haven't really, to be honest, on it like as much as I would like to. I always set a reminder to meditate for like a little bit of time, like every 2 hours, meditate for 10 minutes. Every 2 hour, meditate for 10 minutes.
Mhm.
But like I'm lucky if I make it through like a couple of minutes of that 10 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I really want to increase that, but in time, like I said, it's the same problem. Like just it's like I'm going 100 kilometers an hour. All of a sudden, I'm just slowing down to zero and then jump back on the 100 kilometers again. It's just that. So learning to find a better momentum where it can feel more smooth rather than stop and go. Um, The other piece is just putting my phone away after a certain time, like putting my phone away
Mm.
so that I'm not mindlessly scrolling, which is another part. I'm just noticing, how easy it is to just keep bringing in more information to the mind rather than just quieting the mind. And I feel, disconnected from spirit, like just from my own body. But it almost like it's easier to do that than to meditate or something. So I really want to shift that habit pattern. And even if I do feel pain or discomfort, like, encourage myself to feel into that rather than distract myself from it.
Mm.
Another piece of the big puzzle for me is actually talking to conscious people, like it dropping in, having like a good heart to heart conversation. It just like, it does so much. Yesterday I dropped in with a friend from Germany, funny enough, and we just had this amazing conversation. It was just only like 30 minutes conversation, but it was just so good. I was just like feeling happy again. It's like it's strange, but I find out like how important it is for me to have that like in-depth conscious conversations, like where I can really share how I'm feeling, and someone is actually listening. They're not just like partially listening. They're actually listening, and they're just like there. And for me, that's like one of those things. It's like, yeah, I feel seen, I feel heard, and that's like, it's everything. It's just like such a blessing. So those are the things I tend to lean towards when I'm feeling like low energy or something. Of course, walking outside helps. I mean, today is like I said, it's 80-kilometer. It's like a cold, like a windstorm, and it's like it's supposed to be like a blizzard, like an ice storm blizzard. And I was walking, and I was just noticing like right side of my face was getting so cold, and my left side feels so warm. And I was like, okay, let me turn my face around so I can evenly get cold on both sides, right? And I feel nice. It's like, okay, I feel alive. Okay, that's good. It's like you're taking a cold bath, but just only on my face. At least it's something. Um, so yeah, those are some things. How about you, Lex? How do you stay present in this world?
Yeah. Well, that's a really, I've sort of designed my life so that I can spend a lot of time being conscious, but that involves isolation. So I guess loneliness is a big factor which I have to manage. And like you said, talking to other conscious people is like, it's like going home, isn't it? It's like going back to your planet or something. But I have one of the things that I need to remember to do because it works is to, for me anyway, is to juice. So so I've got one today. I've been juicing. So like today's is melon with mint, which is a really nice combination. It's like sharp and it's hydrating and energizing, and it's a bit like bubble gum or chewing gum or something. Yeah. Anyway, it's really good. It's hydrating and cleansing. And what I notice is that sort of it thins. I guess it thins your blood, and as soon as that starts moving, your energy starts moving, and you feel more lucid in every way. So it's like such a small thing, and yet it makes such a massive difference. So juicing is a big thing. I'm getting into you guys, when you're talking about self-talk and you're being specific and you're sort of having the belief and the courage to 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 get results by wishing them into being. That's kind of new for me. I've started to do that fairly recently, so I'm at the beginning of learning, but it definitely works. It's a real thing, isn't it? We really do have that magic if we use it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That reminds me, Lex. So this past week, I've been really going through a lot of, I don't know if you guys have felt it, but literally when the spring equinox hit and then the new moon, I was just like, oh my God. I just felt like all the collective energy, the change, all my triggers that were like, that need to go were just like everything. I mean, and anger. Felt like a lot of anger, frustration,
Mhm.
impatience, just like annoyance. And I'm not really like that at all. but just annoyance with people and their ignorance and their inability to change. It was like, whoa, why am I being so judgmental, you know? And even with my partner, there was things that were coming up that I was just like in it, right? And I was on the way to work and I was listening to Byron Katie, Abraham Hicks, and it was the message I needed. And it was to that point where it was like, it's a choice to be in the vortex. And I never saw it this way, that, we're constantly building all the things that we desire, all the things that, really speak to us in our heart and from our soul. And then she talks always about the vortex, and I always imagine it being outside of me, So how do I manifest into the 3D from this 5D? And no, it's a choice. Literally, that's how powerful your mind is. And I was going to work upset about something, and I'm listening, and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? I control the frequency within me. I am giving so much energy to this lower frequency of the emotions that are coming up. It's like, I know better than this. She's like, yeah, when you're in the vortex, you feel it. It's like a surrender. It
Mm.
feels good there. Okay, now I'm back in alignment. Now I'm literally I am with all of the things that I am creating. When we're outside of it, we sometimes take on that victim role, or we feel out of control, or everything's happening to us, or all this stuff I have to do, or whatever the mind is, whatever that story is that's happening, there's a moment where you can go, nope, no.
Mm.
I create my day. I create the frequency. I'm creating what I'm calling in. Okay, what's really happening here? And you get out of that, lack of a better word, ego, because
Mm.
the ego is always trying to keep us safe and keep us from protected. But no, it's not even about that. It's about a surrender. And surrender is what takes us into being right there with all that we desire, into the frequency that we need to be in and want to be in to really create and call in the love, call in what we're creating, maybe projects, calling in the right people, or even calling in the flow that's needed to resolve whatever's happening in a relationship or in a situation. That I finally, I don't know, something clicked for me listening to that. And I immediately went, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm going to send him love. We are all human beings. We're all just doing our best. I'm going through a lot too. I'm obviously probably projecting, it's like, I just love that we have that choice. I guess that was the main point of me going there. And when you make that choice to be in your power and be in that surrender, it immediately puts you in to the vortex where you've created all of these amazing things that you want in your life.
Mm.
Yeah. Anyways, I hope I conveyed that well enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anybody else connect with the vortex?
Maybe that's not a good word to use, but
I mean, I definitely
There's a,
sorry, Lex, go on.
I'll just say this quickly. There is a vortex in us. The heart, when it pumps, creates vortices. And at the center of them is a 0 point, like an absolute zero. So there is literally one in us.
that's beautiful.
I definitely feel that, even we within ourselves, we flow. I mean, I feel like I flow in and out of like a different frequencies. It's more so present, or it's more so obviously present when I'm working with the medicines per se, because then I'm really be able to see through the layers. But even like within the days, depends on how strong my meditation practice is. I'm able to see like the level of consciousness that I'm carrying. So, like you said, it is a choice. Like where I want to resonate becomes a choice. If I choose to, keep feeding the meditative wolf, then I'm obviously vibrating in a much higher frequency where everything is in a flow. Even when things don't go the way it does, I'm able to take a step back, take a deep breath, and just observe and see what's actually unfolding around me. And then I'm seeing the bigger picture rather than feeling like I'm that little puzzle piece trying to figure out, oh, where do I fit next, versus like the person who's placing the puzzle, like the I guess the observer. It's something I definitely play with, maybe not something I don't talk about as often, because I don't find not everyone quite understands it. But I'm curious to hear perhaps like if what I'm saying makes sense to, if you're resonating with what I'm sharing.
Yeah, I'd like to, speak a perspective into this, like between what Aisha's saying and what you're saying. I've noticed that, like, become even more aware of it in the last couple of years with my relationship with Becky, is she's really keen on creating a really high vibe space to dream in the next version of reality. Like we go have a special night to call in the dream for next month or next 2 to 3 months, or like where we want to go. Like we like get ourselves in a really high vibe place to even start to dream or vision or create from. And then that's been more present in my mind on the daily now. Like something will happen, I'll get my feelings hurt, I'll be offended, I'll be angry, and I'll be going through my mind of all these things I want to say or communicate to this person or tell this person or do. And I'm like trying to be really present with it. I'm like, this is exactly what I want to say, but my energy's like charged, and like it's not the right place to like create my reality from. And or communicating is a big part of creating your reality. So like if I was going to go communicate, it might be everything that I really want to say, but the charge behind it might like put create a reality that I don't want to be in, or that person that I'm going to communicate to doesn't want to hear it, at least not with that vibration behind it. And I'm slowly, like, just now I was starting to become more aware of that, and how much I could like just shelf that for a little bit, and like, okay, I can hold on to what I want to say or need to say and wait till my mood changes. And a couple hours later in my day, I've accessed a better mood, I'm feeling good about life. And then all of a sudden, like, I have less of a need to even say those things. And I'm like, I don't know, I can say it, maybe not. Maybe I don't even need to say it. And I don't know. So that's what I was adding into that. That's, to me, that's the vortex. That's the hard space. Is like I just being more aware of where my mood is at. I'm angry, I'm upset, that's totally fine, but that's not necessarily the place I want to create from. So it's maybe a time for me to like be taking care of myself. Like, what do I need right now? I need to go to the coffee shop and write in my journal and hang out with myself for a little bit and feel good again. And yeah.
That's it. I mean, I definitely resonate with what you're sharing, Shin. I think that's a big piece of the puzzle. And oftentimes, when I am in that certain mood, it's really me. It's not even the other person what they're sharing. It's really me, and me just projecting, whether it's my anger or my frustration, to that person. And it takes a strong will to be able to first recognize that, and secondly, to take action in regards to that. I feel like, I mean, I see it in my dad quite often. Like, whenever something happened, he just snaps like that, just like his. But then again, he's also Leo, which I kind of understand. I mean, it's not an excuse for him to go off on all the time, but it is important that just taking that moment, just taking that pause, and seeing what's possible in this moment.
I think there's a lot of juice here. This is like a foundation of our relationship with being, with reality. Do you know what I mean? Communication. So I looked into communication, and I just thought, I'll just quickly look at communication, and it became profound. It became like a foundation of how to move through our life experience. And the first communication is with ourself. So when people do shadow work, that's a beginning of a conversation with aspects of self, isn't it? And then there's sort of like a process, or processes, and inner dialogue, communication, and then there's the communication with other people, but then there's a communication with reality itself. And I think that we're always communicating with ourselves, we're always communicating with other people, and we're always communicating with reality. And I think what we're discussing is that if we're not in control of that communication, things will be communicated that aren't in our best interest.
Mhm. Well,
Yeah.
powerfully spoken.
I love that, Lex. And I, as I've said, I've been going through a lot of emotions this week, and it, I really have to keep checking in with myself and checking myself. And because what's happened to that point is, yeah, when you're not aware that it's actually like maybe it's your inner child and that's why you're so angry. If you're not aware of that, and if you don't have the know-how or the practice in place to go, oh, let me deal with the actual emotions that are fueling what I want to say right now, otherwise you're going to be projecting. And that's a lot of people are constantly projecting. I think a lot of times they don't
Mm-hmm.
even realize that they are. They may feel like they're trying to
Mm-hmm.
share how they feel, but it's like until they're at peace with where it's coming from, it's not ever going to really land. It's not going to feel good. Like Shane was mentioning, all these things he wants to say, they're important, but if it's backed by a specific frequency or energy, then we're going to feel things before we actually hear what someone says, you know? So I think that's really beautiful. And for me, if I can't in that moment get to the place on a frequency level where I need to be to convey, then I just send love. I have been finding that just sending love to that person and also to whatever's going on within me if I don't have the time in that moment to address it, because with love, it it's all knowing. It has like this compassionate air to it as well. I don't know, like when I send the love, I feel the compassion come back to myself because we are each other. We
Mhm.
are mirrors. Relationships are the best way to learn about yourself if you choose to. That's why we're here in these connections and these human connections with each other. And yeah, I've been dealing with a lot of intense energy around me, especially at my work. And I've literally have just been over it. But it's been a big test for me to still stay in my power, stay grounded, and to really convey in a really beautiful, compassionate way, because that is my end goal. And I also want to address myself that way too. So I've been really learning a lot lately.
That's really beautiful, Aisha, and I super resonate with what you're sharing, especially in terms of like this work relationship.
Mm.
So I mean, there's like a lot of nuance there for me to touch on. So I've been going to do some work with my dad just to see what he does, like learning some trade stuff. He does plumbing, by the way, just to get Shane's juice going.
I work for a plumbing company, so we're all in it.
Plumbing, yeah.
So and I'd sometimes see him like you get frustrated in the car, like when you're driving, to work or something, and I would like internally, I wouldn't say it out loud, but internally I would like say certain like affirmation, like a positive affirmation, like you're saying, like sharing love. But I would say that within myself, and I would notice, well, first of all, there's a piece about like there's the inner child that's in me that wants to hang out with my dad, but there's also a lot of trauma related to it. But doing a lot of work with the medicine, realizing that like my father is like a son, so my relationship with the son is really important in order for me to flourish in this world. um, but there is like trauma there, like a lot of physical abuse or whatever this is, and know like when he's get angry, like it can really has a way to go sideways. But in
Mm.
that moment, without me letting the inner child come and take control and start into and getting into an argument, there's a different way that I want to approach this going forward. So by just like saying positive affirmation within me, I just notice it creates this like a beautiful, like a lotus like energy in that space. Like we were just stuck in a box. Were we gonna jump off the car? No, right? So just like we were stuck in this box, so let's create this nice energy. And then I would notice like his energy would start to shift right away, and it just like transmute into something like something beautiful, or even just like it just mellows it out. um, so I found that like a really fascinating. And as you mentioning this, that's what was coming up for me. Oh yeah, I've been experimenting with this too, and it works. So thanks for sharing that.
Love
So I
it.
love it. We've got two perspectives on the communications with others. but Lex brought up a really powerful point. I love that, Lex, the 3 different communications happening, one with ourselves, one with others, and the third one with reality. And I would like to drop in onto that conversation a little bit of what's our conversation with reality? Because I would say mine, I have, when I notice it the most is when I'm angry with reality. And I don't imagine that's serving me or whatever, but like I'm not always thinking about what my conversation with reality is. But when it gets to that point where I'm angry with reality, I definitely feel that. And sometimes I'm like venting or whatever at that. But yeah, Lex, can you give us some more feedback on that?
So yeah, there's a lot here, and it's really powerful and useful, and it opens a lot of doors, and it changes. So I think a balanced person does feel authentically anger, does feel authentically sadness, all that sort of stuff. And so there's authentic emotions. And then there's this sort of mastery where you learn to master your emotions. Clearly, I haven't done it yet. But the thinking would be that you can differentiate between a genuine, real, authentic circuitry and something that's a bit illusory or misinformed. So for instance, the relationship with reality, we mistake our relationship with other people for being reality. So I would say that most of the people in my country have been programmed into certain behaviors, certain attitudes, and that has certain results. My society is a certain way. Being amongst it is difficult. Consciousness is not prevalent, but that's not reality. Reality is something else, something above that, something before that, after that, you know? And so to know that, to differentiate and see that the fabric of my experience is a mixture of lots of other people, and then apart from that is reality. And so my some of the work I'm trying to do is to strengthen my relationship with reality and not be distracted by the societal constructs.
Uh-huh.
That was quite wordy, wasn't it? But you get what I mean? It's like I can go out and be around people and I can look at it and I could label that this is reality, right?
Mhm.
But it's my experience and it's part of reality. It's part of reality that is happening because of other people's choices. We're going to get into judgment in a minute, trust me. But there is, I believe, some other aspect of reality that I can have a really good relationship with, a loving relationship with, a conscious relationship with, and a sort of, like a beautiful, life enhancing relationship. And if I can hold that connection amongst my daily,
Mhm.
I feel like I'm onto something, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love this conversation because, and I love hearing different perspectives about reality. Mine is kind of similar to Lex. I feel like we choose our reality. And I feel like there's multiple realities happening. I mean, there's millions of realities happening because there are many different people projecting. But I feel like the only true reality is that of Mother Gaia. She is never changing and she is alive and she has been here. We are here because of her. And that's like for me, when there's all these different things happening in the world and these different realities, or maybe that's one reality, um, and it feels overwhelming. For me, I choose of what frequency I am going to be giving myself to or investing myself to or my attention. And I also feel that that's very powerful because where we give our attention, even if it's just reading about it or if it's talking about it, it's like I feel like you're feeding it. And so I feel like we actually create, and that's what the collective, I feel like there's different collective realities, depending on which one you want to invest in and which one you want to be present in and feed and nourish, or if you want to allow yourself. And I was actually just talking about this with someone yesterday, that on a very simple cellular level, being just conscious of how you show up in those daily practices is what's either feeding this collective of, starting a new world, really changing the systems that were designed to be as horrible as they are by not even giving them attention. By you are now creating and investing your energy and your being into this way of living. And it is different and it is a reality. And I feel like this is a different reality over here. And I was writing about this last night
Mhm.
and it was all over the place. I almost don't want to read it because it doesn't feel fluid. I was just letting it was like free writing and I was just letting it come out. But the question was, how can one, or maybe the collective perhaps, find solutions to the most dire corrupt issues in our world without giving it energy? And
Hmm.
that's kind of like what that reminded me of. And it's like, and one of the things that I wrote about was, I think I wrote it down, was well, one was really bringing our focus back to our relationship with Mother Gaia is key in our evolution because she speaks codes. And if you want to surrender to her and humble yourself, you can channel her wisdom. And I feel like that is like, first of all, the one true reality that will never change. She is unchangeable. So for me, connecting with her every day and grounding into her, that is my reality. And if I feel lost, I come back to her. That helps me know what is true. Um, but it is interesting because everyone is creating different versions of reality as well all the time. And you also have a choice of whether you want to invest or agree to or
Mhm.
play in those realities. Yeah.
Yeah, Lex.
So my belief system is that we live in a sort of an imaginarium, and that consciousness or programs are what inform this endless potential of how to be, and that it's ever changing. But that somebody has hijacked the majority magic, right? That's what they're called, the majority magi, right? So everyone is co-creating reality, but somebody has cottoned onto this, and they have, first of all, made everyone believe there's no such thing as magic and that we're not creating this place. And then they've got everyone to create it in a certain way.
Mm.
And that when you were saying we all create our own reality, my for me, where that resonates is that each one of us contributes to the creation of reality.
Mm.
And so it's like a tug of war. You either need as many people, or you need the people on your team to be very strong,
Mm,
right? And that strength, for me, it comes down to the way we communicate with reality. And there's some investigation there that I think you guys might like, you might not, I don't know. But so if you think that if we are open to the idea that we might be magicians, everybody's a magician. Each one of us is contributing some magic, and that magic then becomes something, and that most people, their magic has been hijacked, and it is being manipulated so that a certain reality is created. Well, if there's less people to oppose that, I think their magic needs to be very clarified and very condensed and powerful. And I think there's a way to do that.
Mm. I like where you're
that-
going with it. I'd like to continue that. I want to just clarify, if we could back up 1 second. We started with a communication with reality, and then Aisha brought reality into nature. It's kind of like one aspect, earth, and earth itself being an energy, and like tuning in with that as reality. And then I guess I also wanted to extend it to what else is included when we say our conversation with reality that's separate from the conversation with other, which would be like other humans, I guess, right? um, if we have a direct relationship, if we're having a communication with reality, and it could include earth, does it include like interdimensional spirit? Does it include a source energy? Like, what are some of the other things that that conversation with reality may include? Yeah, Alexa.
For me, and I've sort of investigated this, and there's evidence. There's so many people I've met who do the same thing, but with a different dressing up, a different kind of backdrop, and a different kind of like a difference between, you could have Shakespeare themes in a Western. You can take the structure of something and you can put it in a different time frame or a different situation. The structure is the same, but it looks vastly different. And so I know people that say that they talk to little elves, and I know people that talk to dragon energy, and I know people that talk to the Pleiadians, and I know people that talk to King Arthur and Merlin, and you could go on for days, couldn't you? Right, of the different things, archangels, guides, recently departed. But there is essentially one commonality, which is that people are picking a way to see and experience having a conversation with reality, and that there is a conversation, right? So the thing that I get from that is that what's happening is we are conversing with reality, and reality is conversing back, and it will be anything we want it to be. However we currently interpret it is how we will perceive it. And then people get lost in the interpretation, the dressing up, like, oh, it was a Western, so reality is a Western. Oh, it was a future film. Reality is the future. So it was a singular male entity, right? Reality is a singular male entity. And so the thing that I think is causing so much separation is that people don't seem to want to condense it down and only go with the fact that they know they're having a conversation with something and that something is conversing back, and get it down to that level of simplicity.
Yes. And that leads into exactly what I wanted to share. This is such an interesting conversation because I mean, reality feels so multi-layered to me, and sometimes just like more a part of like our spirit being than our human experience. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Like, because reality can be anything really. And something I've been doing and putting into practice lately, and I just have a note right when I get out of bed, I see it. It is to approach everything and everyone as the divine, and really allow the divine's perspective to guide and lead me. And let me tell you, it has probably been one of the hardest practices that I've been trying to implement. And I know that, like, as a natural loving being, I am love. It's easy for me to send love to someone or say, you know what, I'm they're human. I'm just going to let love figure this out. I hope that it helps them heal or whatever it is. But when you really are going into something, I mean, you're coming from such an elevated way of thinking and being and seeing when you, because if you're really, I mean, it depends what each person's idea of the divine is. I think it all is pretty similar, but to be able to approach reality that way, and now I'm applying it to, oh, instead of just people or situations, maybe just approaching just reality as the divine's perspective. I feel like it takes out a lot of attachments to it needing to be any certain way. And it involves like a trust. I think surrender is really important when we are communicating with reality, or like, as you were saying, Lex, communicating with something. And it is similar no matter how you dress it up. And but I think coming from that divine, we are all each divine. We already are divine. So it's like helping really, really to deeply tap in with my divine being. And it's interesting between that and working with Mother Mary to open my heart. I'm at this weird place. A lot of stuff is coming up. But so now bringing reality into the conversation, I'm just like, okay, yes, that's even more beautiful. Like, how can I even allow my heart to have like a totally different conversation with actually reality, with what is. And I feel like what is the divine. So yeah, go ahead, Lex.
Okay, if you guys are cool with this, so if we just look at the repeating things that keep happening in everyone's relationship with whatever they choose, and the way reality keeps behaving without human input, so you could say nature, right? and some kind, some people would say supreme being, some people would say the universe, etc. Some people would say the Galactic Federation of Light. People would have a way to need to have a personality, to have characteristics that make them feel comfortable or match something that they've experienced in their life. So any book that somebody's read, any film they've seen, any story or labeling that has happened in your life is a reference. And my relationship with something is much cleaner because I wanted it to be that way. But most people's relationship is, it seems like something compassionately talks to you in a language which you're most comfortable with, has a face that you're most comfortable with, and presents itself for you to match where you currently are in terms of what you've acquired psychically, psychologically, and that sort of stuff. But I think that there's a more powerful connection when you manage to push through that. So let me just give you an example. If I look at nature, most people I know who are sensitive, kind, loving people will turn away from the television when a lion or a group of lions stalk the youngest, newly born, cutest little baby antelope, and they'll hunt it down and they'll chase it and they'll rip it to pieces and eat it alive. Right? Now that's nature, and in fact, most of nature is death and horrible, difficult struggle. Most things are dead before they even become adolescent. When you see anything around you, that's a survivor. It has survived predation, and it's done it lots of different ways. It's done it by numbers. Most of its group were killed, right? That's quite sad, horrible. Or it fought back, right? It said, no, fuck you. And it found a way, but it survived. It survived predation. So when people talk about Mother Nature and they only talk about the butterflies and the beautiful moments when the water's flat and the golden light is reflecting on it, yeah, those are beautiful moments. They're precious, and they are the outcome of a maelstrom of horror, right?
Mm.
And shaman is when you feel into all of those energies simultaneously. And so for me, when I feel into those energies, I sense something. I get more. It's more charged. The beautiful moments are more tender, more profound, more valuable, because I'm ranging that against its exact opposite. And so everything becomes more amplified, more powerful, and the energy that moves through you becomes absolutely multiplied. Your perception becomes pin sharp. Your psychic energy goes through the roof. Your preemptive prediction, it just all explodes, right? And so for me, when I'm not trying to call, this is only my perspective. For me, when people see God as a man and Earth as a woman, I feel like they've instantly shut down from feeling into the wholeness of it, and thereby aren't actually feeling into the circuitry of it, and thereby aren't actually manifesting it through them, right? And it's not just half, it's a lot less than half, because the two things together inform each other in such a way that you get this three-dimensional, all time and space. What love means. I'm nearly done. The absolute unimaginable treasure that love is, when you allow yourself to feel the most horrific things that are happening, it completely and utterly inflates its value and just puts it front and center as the thing that it's all about. But you can't only have that front and center and then get rid of the rest, because then it's like you let the charge go. It becomes discharged. It doesn't have the context. It doesn't sit truthfully, right? To sit it truthfully, you have to sit it amongst all of the horror. Right. That's my presentation.
All right. I'd like to hear Mano's feedback on the conversation, communication with reality, and where you're connecting with this.
Well, I'll start at the base level of it. So on a base level, what I mean by that is when you walk into a household per se, let's say we walk into, just say it's like a mom, dad, two kids, right? Like you go into the kids' room, they're just concerned with their homework, going to school, like you're playing in the playground. That's their reality. And then you go into the mom's room, mom's worried about the kids, you know, just making sure the food is ready or this and that. And that's like the mom's reality, making sure the kids are good, the husband's happy, whatever. You go into the husband's room and you just notice like, oh yeah, just making money and this and that. This is just like a serious, stereotypical, like just what's happening. And for me, that's like a one version of reality. And the fact that, I'm in Toronto, just kind of seeing, interacting with people, I find that like if I go to like my house versus if I go to my next door neighbor on the right hand side, if I go to their house, it will be a totally different reality because they're like from Pakistan. So the way they make their food, till the conversation they have is like a very different than my neighbor on the other side, which is a Portuguese man, like, just like the food to conversations, the way they celebrate, like, one house no alcohol, the other house let's have a wine, it's lunchtime. So it's like a completely like two opposite things, and that's like the fundamental reality that I get to face into today, like right now on a day-to-day basis, when I say hi to them or like hang out with them. But I like to step in and out of realities. So right now I'm in Toronto. A few weeks ago I was in Florida. Completely different scenario. Complete everything was like so different. I was right on the water. Different weather. People were focused on different things. They don't work like 9 to 5 like the people, like most of the people I interact with these days. So the reality there is very different, and they're like multimillionaires, like I live just on the same street that I do, like basketball players, football player, like the famous people. It's so normal. It's a very different lifestyle. And then a few years ago I was living in a farm, like out in BC, beautiful area, very high conscious, very different energy entirely. And I've lived in like all these different realities. And what makes reality, we still have like a day and night, the sun goes around, like those are fundamental things. Yet like relating with human beings, I get to face into their, each person have their own separate reality. That's what I feel. And that's without me even getting into the realm of like aliens, and that's like a whole nother layer of realities, that I think it's like it would be far-fetched if I start tapping into it. I mean, I have had connections with talking to being that's not human, and with that being said, this reality doesn't even seem to match. Like most people, if I were to mention this, would look at me like, is this person okay? I mean, that's again, that's my perception of what they might think of me when I start sharing these things, right? So I think reality for me, it's like a very fine line. Like it depends on who I'm talking to. I change the way I'm speaking. If I'm talking to my dad, I speak very differently than like if I'm speaking to you. And I just want to make sure, like, am I going in the right direction, Shane? This is like, is this weird
I want to tune it in one more degree. For the different realities, Lex kind of introduced us with like communication with ourselves, communication with the other, like other humans. We'll even group in aliens as others as well. And then there's a conversation or a communication happening between us and reality. And we're trying to kind of define exactly what reality is. Reality, nature, the context. There's something going on directly between you and reality itself, the kind of like the subtext of all the you and the others, and which could include source, interdimension, like I don't know, like that. We were defining that, and I'd like to even speak not just intellectually, but what's real for us today. How is our conversation or communication with reality, or with that layer behind that, you and spirit, you and the greater context outside of the interpersonal other?
Well, thanks for the clarification. I mean, I'd say for me, like, there's a lot of frustration, like a lot of anger, in terms of like facing into what I'm seeing. And I can speak for myself. The reality that I'm facing into is that it looks like we're going to be going into war. And when I see that, I'm like frustrated. I'm like angry. Like, I don't want this. This is crazy. This is like, why are we doing this? So I definitely have that the anger toward it. But this is the weird part. In some ways, like weirdly enough, maybe we need to go through this. Like there's a certain level of excitement within myself in order for like the collective to wake up, just to see that we keep repeating the same stupidity over and over again. And how many more time do we need to do? And yeah, and it's like it's something I haven't fully understood it myself, but that's something I'm observing within myself. Um, this frustration and like this inner hope that maybe this is the way through that majority of us wake up. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. Hope, I think, enters into the picture when we talk about our conversation. Anger, hope are like tensions within that. And just to tie back in even what Lex was saying, that like there's tension of mother father earth or mother father God, and seeing the full range of like carnage of death and beauty are both nature, and how that informs our relationship or conversation communication with the whole entity, and maybe even allows us to feel that full range of life. And we could even use that word in there, our conversation with reality / life.
Yeah, that's why, and I like that Lex brought that up because that's why I always tap back in, even though I call it Mother Nature. I call it because it's creation. Creation comes from a womb, comes from the feminine. But what's so beautiful about the earth is that it is showing you the feminine and the masculine. Like I might be a woman at birth, but I have masculine and feminine energies within me, and so does she. She has cycles within her, just like I do. It's like she really mirrors me. And so it's something that, and she doesn't lie, she is truthful. And she connects me also with something that's way bigger than what I can see. And so for me to be able to, you know, really see something, I have to believe it first. And I do believe that instead of the other way around, you know? And so for me tapping back in with this energy that Mother Nature is, or the earth is, it helps me to get balance within my masculine and feminine energy. Because if you look at different realities, like just say even just like the world scene right now, it obviously has a strong masculine, unhealthy masculine presence in there, as far as like what we know as like structure that's unhealthy, you know, or being commanding or demanding, or just go 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 energy, or just do energy. I mean, that's what is heightened right now, and it is that way because feminine energy also brings in balance and it produces more life. And it, I feel like that's why we are out of balance. And it's not, and the masculine energy is such a key important piece in our earth, in our reality, finding balance as we know it in the world scene. We need healthy masculine energy so that the feminine can surrender to it, and then the feminine can heal and the masculine can heal. We need each other for that, you know, as far as like seeing it as a reality with those kind of energies, because those energies are always at play in everything, whether they're healthy, in balance, or in alignment or not, you know. And yeah, so I like that Lex brought that piece up. You're right, you do really have to be checking in with your experience with reality in all those ways, because if we're just coming at it from one place within us, it's not really aligned, right? It's not really truthful even, I feel like. Does that make sense?
First thing I want to say is that you're all lovely people. Like you're genuinely lovely people. Each one of you has a gorgeous energy, and you've done work, and you've done work because of your loving, compassionate intention. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I sense that. And so to be someone who doesn't just create a conversation that goes along nicely and gives us a feel good factor, you know, I wish I wasn't this person. It's sometimes, but you know, um, it is, there is a positive outcome from having these kind of conversations. There are layers that might not need to be there that can be removed. There are nuanced adjustments that can happen. And in doing so, the thing that you're going for gets closer to, that each one of you seems to be going for, will get closer to you. More energy, more magic, more sovereignty, more empowerment, more clarity in your mind. But these conversations, these types of subjects, I believe, are rites of passage. And if you go through them, you come out of them richer, you know? So I don't know how that resonated with people, but I've, you know, if you guys are up for it, I could push this a little bit more.
Yeah, push it. Push it.
What about you, man? Are you cool? Or because I'm easy, I can totally back right.
No, I want to hear like what you have to suggest. I'm all up for it, but yeah, go on.
Okay.
Question.
Aisha, be honest. How are you feeling right now? You okay? Or
Oh, I'm always open. You know, honestly, like my truth within me is so strong. However, I love a new perspective. I love being able to see the world, myself even in a different way. And I think like it's so important to be that way so we can keep growing and keep expanding, especially consciously. So, and every time Lex that you've taken it somewhere, I'm always like, "Ooh, I like that." And I take it and I start implementing it in my life somehow. So, yeah, let's do it.
okay, so
Before you get started, let me just respond back to what something Aisha was just sharing earlier about the masculine and feminine energy, Aisha, if that's okay. Which was like, I also feel that, you know, in our collective, even like a lot of feminine are choosing to lean more into the masculine energy, which really tips the scale. So just to speak that piece out and to, I find that like a lot of men starting to lean more toward the feminine energy, just because a lot of the women are being called toward the masculine energy, just because of the way the system is designed. So I think it's really important to tip that scale back to come into alignment, more and more people, because otherwise, you know, it's like we're gonna, unless the scale itself is balanced, like we're still gonna see that pull more into the masculine, not like a healthy masculine, but like the unconscious masculine aspect. So I just want to say that out loud.
I absolutely agree with that. I was in an unhealthy masculine for a really long time in my life, and I didn't even realize it. And it's just been in the past maybe 4 years that I've allowed myself to be in the feminine so that it can help me heal my masculine. It's just, yeah, it's very beautiful. And you're right. Women are just as responsible for the masculine energy healing as as the men. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had to lean into my feminine to do a lot of my healing as well, because it is very healing. And yeah, it's important to have that the side by side. So thank you. Lux, the floor.
Yeah, cool. So this is an awesome conversation, and there's so much interesting, rich discovery to be had looking at masculine and feminine. And I strongly suggest we do that at some point in the future. But so, and this doesn't need to, I would, you know, if this, I'm going to do this anyway, and we may not even show the recording if this triggers you too much. But Aisha, the threshold that the female spirituality is at the moment, I believe, has been purposely engineered. I believe that very cleverly, generationally, a story has been woven and put into the minds of so many people, so many books, so many films, that it is taken as the truth, right? It's difficult to be conscious anyway. It's very difficult to be a woman. Women have had we've all had a really tough time, but women have had a really tough time. The feminine was excluded from the Bible, excluded from most religious texts. You know, the female Christ energy is never talked about. You know, it's been horrendous. I am not a masculine attacking feminine. I believe I'm masculine and feminine, currently inhabiting a male body, you know, like genuinely. If I'm going to be sort of a bit sort of basic. The lions that hunt are the females. The males don't hunt generally. So when you see a pack of lions taking down a newborn, cute, doe-eyed Disney little baby, we watch that one for like 15 minutes. We see it eating grass. We see it taking its first steps. Oh, our hearts are bursting. What a lovely moment. Here comes 7 female lionesses. They could pick anyone. They could have a fair fight, but no, they go after the newborn baby. They hunt it down. They separate it from the group and they eat it alive, right? Now that is female energy. That is nature, right? The reason we would label that female energy is we would look at the body of the lioness and say, well, that's a female. But I think that's too simplistic. I think it's too basic. I think there's much closer interweaving of these two energies, which we've brought down to the level of masculine and feminine, but they're more complicated and more nuanced than that, I think. And if we can get past this, I'm a woman and I stand for women, I'm a man, I stand for men, and all that sort of stuff, we go to the next level. What drops down in, descends into masculine and feminine is more nuanced, it's more delicate, and the interweaving between them is much more profound. The story that it's Mother Earth, if you look at it and you give it time, it's not, for me, it's just simply not true, because I've felt into those energies, the energies of reality, and I don't feel that it's feminine. I feel that it's this other thing, this nuanced relationship. It's a relationship. It's not two, for me personally, it's not two separate things. It is literally an interweaving love affair of these two energies. And when they drop down and we describe them, our simplistic way of describing them is man and woman, because we see man and woman expressed physically, right? So for me, when people say, you know, the male energy is fucking the planet up, the female energy is going to save it, for me, none of that is true. And in fact, the reason it won't happen is because everyone's been filled with that lie. What saves the planet is when we all get to consciousness. That's it. There's, for me, do you know what I mean? And so the planet is consciousness. Do you know what I mean? Right? And not only that, but for me, the planet isn't even one consciousness. It's a pair of consciousnesses. So I know this is just me giving my story, and there's millions of stories, but when I feel into it, and I've had the magic stuff happen in my life, it only happened powerfully after I sat and sensed that there was like a mother-father thing happening in everything, in every part of everything. There's a mother-father in a man. There's a mother-father in a woman. Do you see what I mean? There's a mother-father and a lioness. There's a mother-father and a lion. That's how I feel it. And so part of this communication is that if you're communicating and visualizing and having this relationship with it, and you are saying, I want you to be this, it will be that, right? And so we've been tricked into limiting our relationship. We're not having a full expressive relationship with mother father energy. We're picking one, right? I'll be a mummy's girl. I'll be a daddy's boy. Do you see what I mean?
Mm.
Right. I know
Yeah,
that's really,
no, it's not. Actually, there's a lot of things that you have shared that I feel similar to. Um, and I do believe, and this is probably something that it's more about not believing, it's about an understanding within me, because once I started to really truly understand that I am both, which is its own thing, masculine and feminine together, in this being that I am in a human body that is a woman, it's like my experience, yes, and that's why it does the key does lie in our consciousness individually and as a collective being heightened and understanding that those two things flow together and they are one and they create the shift. But I also feel that as beings that are feminine, masculine, when you choose to come down to this school, this earth here, and you choose a woman's body or you choose a man's body, you're going to just have different experiences. And that's just how it is. But the experience, your experience can be different of whether you believe the stories that have been told. So I do agree. Yes, women have been treated a certain way. Different ethnicities have been treated a certain way. And it's a story, it's history, right? However, it's up to me as a woman to whether I'm going to use that story to just empower me.
Mm.
And that's where I choose my power as my experience as a woman and seeing what has happened to women when they use their voice, when they use their magic, when they use their ability to create. We all have that though, but the division begins by acting like women have this feminine as opposed to men not being able to have the feminine. I mean, that's a big conversation in itself,
It
but
really is.
yeah, yeah. And so I what you say really does resonate with me a lot in many different ways. I just think it's so important for us to respect each other's experience within this designed matrix, as a man and as a woman. And I don't think one should be against each other. We are in this together and we need each other. We are so beautiful together, you know? Um, and as far as, it's funny, I really do try to stay open when you're talking about me seeing the earth as this motherly energy. Okay, I am that person where it's hard for me to watch nature when they're taking down anything destroying anything. That is very difficult for me, and that's something that I have had to lean into. You know why? I had not made peace when I started realizing this about myself, probably over the past couple of years. I had really not made peace with my own ability of how powerful I am and that I could actually destroy something if needed. I am not an angry, like violent person at all. But I will tell you, if you messed with anyone that I love, done. And I wouldn't even think about it. And to me, I have to make peace with that within me. So what you're saying, Lex, yes, there's a lot of truth in that. Um, but I think that's something I probably will have to meditate on too, as far as seeing the earth being this masculine and feminine together. And I think there will be expansion for me in meditating on that. Um, yeah, I don't want to say too much more, but I love it. I love what you brought up, Lex, and I always appreciate your viewpoint on things. I think that sometimes being a woman, especially speaking amongst three men, it's like I don't really feel like I even want to prove to you that it's a different experience being a woman. I know it's a different experience being a woman, but I also know that I am just as powerful as you are, and you are just as powerful as I am. So, like, that's where we really need to connect and really honor that power that we both carry together and then make something together. Like that's what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in whether women are, less than men or men. I don't care about that. I don't believe in that. I don't give my energy to that. I'm here to go, you're amazing. You have really beautiful gifts being in your human man experience. I have women experience and gifts here. Let's do this together. Because, that, like you're saying, that is the key. That right there, that's the solution. I do believe in that.
I love it. So I just want to say that I'm not challenging you as a conscious being. You sat there as a conscious presence. What I'm challenging for your conscious presence is things that I'm pretty certain are limiting your conscious presence. This is magic and ability and connections and communication with reality. So that's why I'm tying it all together, is that I think there's lots of this going on. This is only one particular version. I've looked at loads of versions, but in this particular version, women and men are being separated. They're being badly described by each other,
Hmm.
right? So women are badly describing themselves and badly describing men. Men are badly describing themselves and badly describing women. And there's this huge reduction in our brilliance and our awesomeness coming from ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And the paradoxically, the trick is for women to move past this female spirituality that has been crafted
Mm.
very cleverly, and for men to actually move into spirituality, because men have been sort of moved out of it completely. And if men do go into spirituality, they always enter it at female spirituality, right? That's how it seems to me. It's like New Age is mostly feminine spirituality. It's not warrior talk. It's not like let's sit with the gods tonight and plan the next battle. None of that. No. It's how can I love everyone more, right? And surely if we look at nature, it's predator and prey. So a real mystic, a real gnostic, a real evolved, full, whole spiritual being is going to have all of the capability and all of the viewpoints and all of the perspectives. And then the consciousness is going to call on them wisely at the right times.
Yeah, if I can speak, just expanding on this, I'll start with like a simple analogy, before I go too deep into it. Again, I'll bring in Toronto as an example. So whenever there's like a soccer game that's happening, like I'm sure in England it's called football. Well, it's to say there's Portugal playing against Italy, hypothetically speaking, and in Toronto we have all these like a little district. We have like a little Italy, we have like little Portugal, little India. Anyways, like all these little districts, they're only like a few blocks apart from each other. So just say if there's a soccer match happening between like Portugal and Italy wins, you cannot even like a Italian flag, like they fly like Italian flags on the car and blah blah blah. You can't even take that car into the Portugal street because like they'll throw a rock at you or something. It's like because they get like a really crazy. And this is just sports, and you see that with like Argentina, that's happening. Like whenever there's a crazy soccer match, like these fans, they become like a fanatics, like because it's just a simple game, but there is still that separation, there is still that division. And in this very conversation, I think there is a massive division that happens in most people's mind. And just because of the conditioning, the way we've been taught in systems like in school or whatever, that if you're a man, you're supposed to behave this way. If you're a woman, you're supposed to act this way. And there's obviously also the history, that backs it to a certain degree, like how men go to war and you need to, men don't get to cry. And like, if you're a woman, you're supposed to do all these things. So think because of this, like a massive, um, the model that we've been taught, like a condition, it's harder for a lot of people to see beyond that separation, beyond that, to see that all those exist within us. It's easy because we are like connecting on a much higher spiritual level. I wouldn't even use the word higher. I mean, who am I to judge, right? What's higher and what's not? But because we are connecting on it, on a spiritual level, we see beyond the skin, we see beyond our like genitals, like we see into the soul, and to recognize that, yeah, you're me in a different body. We see the soul. And I feel that as long as there is that separation that exists in the level of mind, there would be prejudice, whether that you're man or woman, because it's like a one party doesn't feel hurt. I think it's important to triumph that as human being, as we choose to evolve. I think it's really important to go beyond that separation and to recognize, yes, you bring in certain things into the relationship or into the fundamental of being in this reality that I might not be able to do, and vice versa, and just seeing each other's talents, but also seeing each other's like a downfall, or for the other person is showed, like, okay, how do we work through this? But in a conscious manner, in a way where we can sit down and have a communication about it and move beyond it. And something Aisha said earlier today, we are a divine being. Yes, I agree, we are a divine being, but we are also animals. So there is that aspect to consider. We still live in a dualistic world. We're not just divine. We've transcended that animal aspect of ourselves. I don't quite see that, at least not within myself, not yet. Um, so so how do we work with that animal, when it comes out? So those are just like a little things that was arising within me as I'm hearing this. Shane, I'm curious to hear what's moving through you.
Yeah. I always feel that consciousness creates all realities, including the physical reality. We, as consciousness, in my mind, created the human experience to explore and learn from. And we, as consciousness, in my mind, source consciousness, the totality of everything, even before anything was conceived of or birthed, was one whole. And any manifestation in the masculine, the feminine, are nothing but polarities that exist within the whole. And to me, that's where my mind goes with it. It's just, there's consciousness, and there's the multitude of manifestations of the full spectrum of consciousness, and masculine and feminine are two poles of that. In my mind, no different than a north pole and south pole of a sphere planet, you know, like it's the two poles create the whole. You can't have one without the other. You can't have only a North Pole or only a South Pole. You know, it's like that whole sphere is created. It's one consciousness, many manifestations and gradations of that. But all of it is informed of masculine and feminine. And then there's different manifestations that are more in the masculine and more in the feminine. But it's all consciousess. And that's where I go with it. And I would agree with you that it's not to get too lost in, like, there's, yes, men, and it's not to downplay the different experiences we're having. We are having very different experiences. A white man has a very different experience in America than a man of color. That's true. It doesn't make it fair or right or good or bad or whatever, but it's true. A woman is having a very different experience than a man. You know, we have thousands of years of history where those two things have not been treated fairly and equally. These are all powerful stories and learnings and things to grasp from, but they are not the origin of reality. And I don't like to lose too much energy in the polarity. If there's a specific wound that wants to be addressed or healed, I'm all for it. But to make a bigger deal out of the polarity is not interesting to me. You know, like if a woman's being disrespected or mistreated, or another race is being like put down and then ignoring the fact that they're being disrespected or hurt or treated unfairly, yes, let's deal with that issue. Let's address that issue. But let's not make a big deal out of the fact that we are in our multiplicity. That's by design. And it serves us. Not to mistreat each other doesn't necessarily serve us, but to have that variety of experience does. That's where I'm at with it. And there is one question that's burning in me that's a little bit feels there was so much at the beginning of our conversation of some things that were really juicy that I would like to get into, and whether that's tonight or another night as we're getting towards the end of tonight's discussion, is our relationship and conversation with reality, with life, with consciousness. I'm curious to hear from each of you, is reality flawed? Is there ever doubt in your mind in your relationship, your conversation, communication with reality? Is like, is everything okay? Do you feel safe within it? Are you confident within it? Does it have you? Is it out of balance? Is it unstable? Is it, I don't know. I would like to just feel into that, and if there, whatever your answer is just to hear some feedback. Is it like, if there's confidence, what gives you that confidence? Or does it change from one day to the next?
Like when I feel into it, I don't feel that reality itself is flawed. It's almost, I see reality as a blank canvas. And then what we put into that blank canvas, it's what shapes that reality, or like manipulates that reality for that moment in time. But then you remove that aspect from that reality, and the reality is once again blank canvas. with, maybe somewhat damage to it. That's kind of how I see it. But over time, reality just fixes itself. And when I say reality, and this means I'm talking more so about planet Earth, it has a consciousness of itself, per se. That's how I perceive it. And I don't think reality is something, I feel that like reality wants what's best for us as a human being. And I question, do we really know what's best for us? Or are we just being pulled by the cravings of the mind? Almost this need for drama, per se. Let's create more drama. Let's create this more exciting or interesting in whatever shape or form that may manifest in. And that's like my latest understanding, or that's my current understanding of how I am perceiving reality. And I keep asking myself, like, what kind of reality do I want to exist in? And, when I ask that question, and something that pops into my head is, it's a sacrifice. Whichever reality I choose, I will need to sacrifice something from the other reality. And that's one thing that's consistent. That sacrifice is a must. It's almost like you can't have it all. And that's something I oftentimes fight with in my mind. Why can't I have it all? I want it all. But like, no, you can't have it all. And I even heard this from some spiritual teachers. They say the same thing. And yeah, so now I'm in the phase of actually understanding what it means and accepting it. What's best for me? How do I want to spend my life? Does this make sense? Am I happy choosing to live in this way? And am I willing to let the other things go because of that? And that's how I am perceiving it. I'm curious to hear some other thoughts.
I think the sacrifice, I agree with everything you said as well. I think the sacrifice thing is part of it. Throughout the ages, there's been sacrifice. And when you go to the gym, to get the growth, you have to put the time in, you have to put the reps in, and you get sore. And you can go too far, you can overtrain, but there's like this sweet spot. Cold showers have positive effects. They're awful. I don't know if you guys do them, but they're unpleasant, and yet they have all these positive effects. The foods that are really good for us are the ones that are like, So there seems to be this in part of the system seems to have this sort of sacrifice. And I think that some kind of people have decided that they can get other people to pay that sacrifice for them. And that's part of the trick that's happening right now is people are being made to suffer because that generates something that is used by other people who aren't sacrificing. And so there's this disparity. And so to even it out would be to get everything back to the point where when you sacrifice, you get your reward for that, not somebody else. So I think that's a big factor.
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe that we create our reality. I create my reality, and I think everybody does. We all do, whether we're conscious of it or not, intentional or not. And I also choose which realities I want to engage in that I didn't create, and I choose whether I want to give energy or breath to certain realities. And so, what for myself, I have found it comes in unlearning, because, like Lex brought up, there are stories, there are things that have been injected into reality for thousands and thousands of years. And it's literally within our DNA and keeps getting passed down through our lineages. And so, really, truly coming to know yourself and tapping into, for me, my experience of tapping into my divine being and really understanding my worth, that I don't have to sacrifice anything. It's something that I have to keep coming back to, because for so long we were taught that you did, or that you weren't worthy of things, that you had to work for it. You had to be worthy, or you had to be deserving of it, right? And I just don't believe that. But for me to know it, because it's been something that's been just passed down for so long through all of cultures, all of the history, all collectives, energies. It's just, I mean, it's something we are going through an unlearning within us and coming back to a remembrance. So I feel that to bring it full picture, full circle of what we first started talking about, how we speak to ourselves first and foremost is so important, because that is going to be exactly the kind of reality that you are going to experience. And sometimes we have to be the ones to consistently remind ourselves that you can have and create anything you want. We are limitless. Everything around us is not telling us that, though, in the world, you know? So for me, I'm trying to learn how to block out that noise, how to be in the world, but, actually it's more like I don't want to be in these certain realities, but like you were saying, Shane, I want to be able to support the effects of the reality that's in place, the effects of the stories. And so for me, I need to create a specific type of reality for me to be able to be strong enough to be able to be a helping hand to people who are waking up out of that that hypnotism, really, you know? And it's really powerful to consciously choose to create your reality every day. There are so many people constantly, and it's not a judgment, it's just what's happening, giving their power away, even just by agreeing to certain things that are happening in the world. I mean, it's like your words are so important. What you're uttering out, even about things that are important, but that are of a very low like vibration, even how you speak about them is important. You are at that point contributing to a specific reality. So I think we are creators. We are the ones who decide what we are going to experience. Even if something comes into my reality and I'm like, ooh, I don't like that. My first inclination is to go, what is within me attracted that? What vibration within me, what wound, what thought, is there something I'm not seeing about myself? Like, I love that, because then it's to me, it's a message, and it just helps me to continue to refine. Um, yeah, it's time for everybody to take their power back in their ability to create.
Mm. Mm. Okay, I feel like we're arriving at a good finishing point for our conversation for tonight. It's been full in a lot of directions, and yeah, deep. I feel like we've all put a lot of good energy into exploring these topics, and it'd be a good time for us to move into the final conclusion aspect, where we take a moment to drop in and feel into the full conversation of tonight from the beginning until now. Both of the things that we heard spoken, the things we said, the emotions that have come up as we've discussed these things, and then do our best to channel our higher self, our most clear source, divine energy, to bring forth in as few as words as possible the clarity of tonight's message. Just to summarize the energy, the essence, the wisdom of tonight's conversation. When your channel's feeling clear and you feel a message coming through, go ahead and share with the circle.
I think that our very existence is a communication with reality. What we are made of is resonating. Our very being is transmitting into reality all the time. and we are magically altering reality. And that if we can be aware of that, and if we're lucky and we have the time and the energy, we can work with how we're communicating with reality by being something different. Like, I think that's the fundamental communication. And when you guys talk about love, rightfully, one of the things I'm trying to learn more is to step back into love and be love. Not necessarily love anyone or anything, just be love and let that be my communication. And I'm working on it.
Thank you, Lex.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, what's alive is recognizing that we are the creator of our own reality. And that it's important that we all take the power back into our own hearts and let the heart design, and allow the mind to follow, get lead in with the heart. That message is very present, and learn to trust in the unfolding of the reality that you're currently experiencing. So all of that is bringing you toward where you need to be. Thank you. I feel inspired.
Thank you, Mano.
I had a couple things come through. One was the reality we see with our physical eyes is of a lot of suffering, and it is designed that way, that we only really see division and suffering by the powers that be. But there is so much beauty and magic and unity and love and consciousness at play that we don't always get to witness at the full mass scale, that it is actually happening, and that is by design. And so it's really important for us to, within our each of ourselves, to decide when we are going to be done with choosing suffering, when we are going to each day decide to not to divorce the attachment to suffering. That's what came through, because the reality is what, it's a reflection of all of us and what we choose to believe, what we choose to nourish or not nourish within us, and then without us, and without outside of us. So that was one thing that came through. It literally it popped up as, when are we going to be done suffering? When are we going to be done with what doesn't feel good in our lives or within us? Just as far in relation to the reality that we experience as an individual and as a whole, as a collective. And the other thing that came through was, I've been calling in my higher self, my oversoul, in my 8th chakra lately. I call it in, I let it come through in my heart. I see the ankh spin in my heart. I mean, I really pull in that powerful energy, because the oversoul that is in our 8th chakra is always in existence, even when you're not in your human form. And it has collected all of your human experiences. For me, I think about it, it's collected my experience of being a man in a certain lifetime. And so for me, it's like I've really been trying to call in that energy and really feel it in my body. Because, like, to that point Lex made, we are not man or woman, even though I'm in a woman's body. In this lifetime, I'm having that experience. But I want to experience and create a reality where I am everything, because each of us is everything. That's what the divine is. That's what consciousness is. So for me to really fully know it, I need to keep meeting with it. I need to keep communicating with it. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. As far as the communication piece goes, I'm really learning how to communicate with that in the new stages of it. So maybe I can come back next time and tell you where I'm at with it. It's really profound conversation, and I'm obviously the one who is learning to communicate in that way. But yeah, there's a lot there, and thanks, Lex, for shining your light the way that you do. And there's just so much to take from this conversation. I'm really grateful to each of you guys for holding this space too the way you do. So thank you.
Mm. Yeah, I felt a lot of comfort in tonight's conversation. There's a intimacy maybe that's strengthened over the course of us having these conversations, and a feeling that's come through is a like desire or yearning. Like I can feel the motivation driving the conversation, of moving us towards a unity or a starting point for us to like fractal out in all of our different directions. I feel that we are both holding more space for our different opinions without feeling rattled, which maybe comes through the trust being built, and also a desire to drive and push it to more depth, more clarity, more commonality. It's been like a peeling back of the layers tonight of like how we engage with ourselves, with each other, with life. Peeling back our awareness to that, and how we play this game of life. It seems to be a mixture of like anguish and fear and excitement all together in tensions maybe has come up more than once tonight in the conversation, of the polarities and the tensions and the fullness. And I'll leave with the word curiosity, because it feels very open-ended also this evening. I want to thank all three of you for showing up in your full presence today for another one of these conversations. Thank you for feeding me. I often leave feeling way better than I even show up. Sometimes I'm showing up nervous and anxious to host the space and to do good and do it right. But I finish much more relaxed and with some sharper mirrors at what I need to look at within myself. So I thank each of you for bringing those clarities of reflection to myself, and for creating this group container, which is beautiful. And I thank those who have taken the time to listen to some of these conversations and make it all the way to the end here. So with that, before I say a final goodbye, I'll open the floor if anyone has any closing words.
I can echo what you're sharing. I do feel more inspired. Definitely grateful for the space to come together and to share and to hear each other from a heart-centered space. Yeah, it definitely fills my soul, and yeah, it just inspires me just to keep going and do the work, continue to do the work, continue to see the parts that needs attention and address and attend to. And come back next time around and share more, and take on the next layer of the work. So I'm really grateful for all of you, and bringing your beautiful presence into the space, and yeah, just keep coming back, coming back layer after layer and just going deeper. It's beautiful. Thank you.
So I'd like to say that being around you guys, I'm learning by feeling. Like, you guys are so warm, and you've got such nice energy. You're so kind and compassionate and sort of, I don't know what you'd say really, but I'm going to say warm again. And just being around that, I'm kind of, it's changing me. And so I would like to thank you for that.
You, Lex.
That's beautiful and really heartfelt, Lex. I thank you too for sharing that. One of the things that I wrote down on the list when I asked myself that question last night about really, how do we find solutions without giving the problem energy? One of the things that came through was to treat others as if the end result will affect you as well. And it will, because we are all one. And it made me think, like, okay, what can this reality, when we are in this space together, what can we create here? What are we trying to create? And how do we expand it out into the collective consciousness? That's what I'm excited to see, because we're just in the baby stages right now, but it's just so awesome to be here and to be creating reality with you guys. It's awesome.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, everyone, for your shares, for your closing goodbyes. And until next time.